I wonder when the guys will get here. I've got the beer on ice. We got the grill going, so I think we're going to have a good evening. Oh, hey guys, I didn't hear you come in. Come on in here. Been wanting to talk to you about something. Of course, it's Memorial Day weekend, so I want to first off wish you all a happy Memorial Day weekend, and I hope you're spending time with your family, doing fun stuff, maybe drinking a couple of beers responsibly and grilling out and doing stuff like that, just having a great time. I hope you're all doing that, but I hope more importantly than that, we all remember or take some time to remember what Memorial Day is all about. It's about celebrating the lives and the struggles and the warfare that people had to go through so that we could have liberty and freedom here in the United States of America. Although many of us take that for granted every day. Nevertheless, we need to still remember all the people who died in service, defending our rights and our freedoms and stuff like that. And, it's just a really big deal. And another factor that makes Memorial Day weekend really special for me and my wife is that on this day, 28 years ago, my wife and I got married. So we're celebrating our 28th anniversary. I mean, my God, I can't believe it. It's just unbelievable that I've been married for that long and that my wife, Mrs. Hands-On, has actually put up with my stuff for over 28 years. So just incredible. I'm really happy about that. But the real reason I'm making this video here today is I had a wild dream last night. And to kind of set the table here and what I'm going to tell you about is I don't put a whole lot of stock in dreams as far as dreams being premonitions or anything like that. But whenever I have a powerful dream like this, I try to look at the dream from a different perspective and figure out what that dream could possibly teach me. Is there some thing that I could learn about this, about the people in the United States of America, things like that. So it was kind of an end of the world type of a situation. It wasn't really end of the world. It was like the end of the United States, the end of liberty here in the United States of America. And so when I was falling asleep last night, I remember one of the last things I was thinking about was how the COVID tyranny I was just kind of rehashing a lot of the COVID tyranny stuff that went on, how we were locked down and masked up and forced vaccinations and on and on and on, right? All that terrible stuff that happened. They wouldn't tell us the origin of it. Now we find out, yeah, it did come from the Wuhan lab. But for a while there, if you questioned that, you were banned and censored and on and on and on. You guys, you remember all that stuff. I don't have to rehash all of it. But the article that I read last night before bed was very, very enlightening. The Amish people, they didn't lock down. They didn't mask up. They didn't get vaccinated. They carried on just like nothing ever happened. And guess what? None of them got the coronavirus. And I started thinking all kinds of wild thoughts like, how did this happen? And I remember early on when we were going through the coronavirus stuff, I remember thinking, man, if this is as bad as they're saying it is, all the homeless people are going to die because, obviously they're not the cleanest people. They're out on the street. They're in smaller, tighter knit groups, and stuff. So I assumed there was going to be a massive die-off in the homeless population. And one might also assume that the Amish, because they're so removed from modern society, that it would have swept through their community and killed many of them. But guess what? None of them died. And in fact, I saw someone being interviewed about it, and he was saying in his Amish group, no one ever even got the COVID. So you have to start asking yourself questions that I'm not allowed to ask here on this platform about the realism, was it real? That's as much as I dare say about it. So anyway, let's get into this dream that I had last night because it was freaking wild. So I was here at my place and I was with my wife, and for whatever reason I had a couple of guns that I had on loan from my cousin. My cousin had loaned me a couple of guns to check out, and I was checking them out like in the beginning part of the dream. I was checking them out and I was looking at them, and I remember one was a small framed either a 38 or a 357 revolver, a wheel gun. And I don't know if it was a Ladysmith or maybe it was a Airweight 38 or something like that, but it was a small Smith & Wesson revolver. And I remember I was looking at it, and it was, I want to say it was stainless steel because I remember it being pretty shiny and it was small. And so as I was looking at it, I remember thinking, oh, that's pretty cool. Can't wait to try this thing out, all that. And I stuck it in my pocket. And then from my belt, I pulled out another Smith & Wesson, but I can't remember the model number, but it was an all aluminum frame, 9mm from like back in the 90s or maybe even back in the late 80s, and used to be a highly issued service pistol for the police, right? So it was a police trade-in that my cousin had gotten, and he had loaned it to me to try out to see what I thought about it, right? So I was really excited about both of these things because I wanted to try them out and just see how they shot and stuff like that. Well, I'm standing outside as this is happening, and something in my peripheral vision caught a glimpse of something that didn't seem right. I noticed all of these people being rounded up, and I'm like, why are my neighbors being rounded up? What is going on? So immediately my hackles went up in the dream, and I'm like, oh crap, what is going on? And this is where it gets a little sci-fi, futuristic, and weird, but suddenly, I can't really describe this thing. It was like a flying vehicle, but it wasn't an airplane. It didn't have wings on it. It was more like a kind of like a train or a subway car set up where each different piece was interconnected and they could move and pivot and stuff. But this thing flew out of the sky and landed right in front of my place. And they started rounding all these people up. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I've got a loaded revolver and a loaded, semi-automatic pistol that I've never fired either one of these before. What do I do? I knew they were both loaded, but I didn't know what to do. And I knew I was outgunned. Whoever these people were, they had a lot more firepower than I had on me at the time. So I was caught off guard. Anyway, they rounded us up. My wife included, myself. They put us on this weird futuristic, train that kind of it flies like an airplane, but it more like hovers, kind of like a helicopter. I can't really explain it all. It didn't make a lot of sense in the dream. But we get on this thing, and it was like, the weird thing about it was like a glass tube all the way around the thing, so you could see everything as you're flying around. And I'm seeing all these other ones coming out of the neighborhoods around me. And so they were all full of people, right? So everyone was being rounded up for some reason. No one knew why. The people that were doing the rounding up weren't saying anything. They weren't telling us anything. And they kept saying things like, oh, we'll tell you, we'll explain everything when you get to the final destination. And we're like, oh, okay, well, this is not constitutional, and I'm going off. I'm like, man, this is not right. What the hell is going on? I have rights. I'm a human being, all this stuff, right? And my wife's trying to calm me down. And she did, and I just played cool for a while because she knew I had 2 pistols on me. And I was ready to start attacking people right then and being like, no, you let me off this damn weird train right now because I'm not going to your, FEMA camp or wherever they were taking me. I was picturing all the worst things, right? Well, we show up at another farm, but this farm had been, it was highly secured. It had fencing and stuff all around it, so it was kind of like a prison atmosphere. They take us inside of this farm, and there were some really friendly people there to greet us and stuff, and they were all like, oh, well, there's been a catastrophe, there's a new disease going around, no one really knows what it is, we don't know where it came from, any of that stuff. So it was very reminiscent of the whole COVID tyranny that happened, except this time, instead of just asking you to stay home in your own home, they actually took you to a facility, or they took us. And so I'm looking around, and we're in like this dining lounge type of a situation, or a cafeteria. And there are probably about 30 or 40 other people in this facility. And they brought us in, and we were still in our street clothes and stuff. And they didn't search me. So I still had those 2 pistols on me and a knife. And anyway, I'm talking to my wife, and I'm like, when should I do it? We need to break the hell out of here. We got to get out of here. We got to get back to our place where we could, where we have all our supplies and we have our guns and our ammo and stuff like that, and we're ready to survive. We got to get back there. But we had no idea where we were. So it was kind of like this situation where they took us to a place, and I had no idea except vaguely that they took us to the east. That's all I knew about it, was they took us to the east. So I knew I needed to go west to get back to my place. Well, anyway, I'm looking around in this cafeteria situation, and everyone there is just kind of like zombies. They're not really saying anything. No one's really talking to each other. My wife and I were talking to each other, but no one else was talking to each other. It was really weird. Everyone was just kind of like inmates in a prison. And they were all wearing like hospital gowns, so their clothing was not street clothes. We were the only ones in street clothes. So it was a very interesting situation, and you know, very Orwellian. I was like, oh shit, they're going to try to do something to us and, you know, make us wear these hospital gowns or whatever. So anyway, a few more minutes passed. We're sitting there eating the stuff, and you know, in real life, I would have refused the food because you have no idea what they're putting into that food or anything like that, right? So anyway, like an hour or two goes by, and we were in this different area, like a recreational room type of a situation, and we're trying to talk to other people to figure out what's going on. They're not saying anything, and they're being tight-lipped and stuff, so it was really freaky. And so we couldn't figure out anything. Well, a little while later, these doctor-looking people came in medical suits and stuff. They came in, and they basically had my wife take her shoe off, and they started looking at her feet, and she had some sort of a lesion on one of her feet, and they were like, oh yeah, she's got it, you know, and they wouldn't tell us anything, what it was or anything like that. And they were about to check my feet, and that's when I was like, man, I don't trust these people. I have no idea if, you know, we had no symptoms, we had no signs of anything going wrong before we got on this train. So for all I know, these people are the ones that, you know, infected us with something. So anyway, long story short, I pull out that little Smith & Wesson semi-automatic pistol, and I knew there was a person over there that was like the leader of the group, the leader of the farmer community where they took us, right? And he was a really nice guy, and everyone there seemed to really like this guy. You know, he was not like going around beating people or anything like that. He was very friendly and stuff like this. And so, but I knew he was the enemy. He was the enemy of freedom. He was the enemy of my liberty. So I pulled out my pistol and I put up to his head and I blew his brains out. And the weird thing about it was a couple of things. For one, in the past, when I've used a pistol or any kind of gun in a dream, oftentimes it clicks and it doesn't fire. Something's wrong. It's jammed or something's wrong with it and it will never fire. So this was very unusual for me to paint the walls with this guy's brains inside of the dream, right? The other weird thing was everyone else in the group that were there, not talking, not doing anything, not communicating, and like a zombie-like mindset, turned on me and my wife. And we immediately got the hell out of there. We broke out, and I remember this is another weird part of the dream that was just kind of like, it was just bringing up stuff from my past. In the past, my wife and I owned a 67 Mustang with a 4 on the floor. Was it a 289, 4 on the floor? Cool old car. Red with black interior, really nice car. And anyway, that car was sitting outside under a tarp, and it looked like the tarp had been disintegrated by the sun. So it had been sitting there for a while, but I could see the front of that Mustang horse sticking out from the blue tarp. And I knew that if I could get out there, that I could get that Mustang started because I know how to work on it, right? So I knew that if I could get out there to it, that I'd be able to rip that tarp off and jump in there, hot wire that Mustang or get the key or whatever I did. I don't know. I didn't really go into details like that in my mind in the dream, but the next thing I know, we're in that Mustang, we're busting through the fence, and I've got my wife. She does have the lesion. I saw the lesion. I have no idea what that meant, but I knew that she had been infected. Now again, we showed no symptoms of anything wrong. No one was showing any symptoms until they showed up to this facility. We did get away, but that's where the dream ended. You know, I kind of woke up at that point and I was like, what did it mean? What in the world did this mean? And one of the things I remember thinking about in the dream was that we were nearing the 2024 election. It was coming up on the 2024 election. And I immediately thought to myself, oh my God, they're doing this so that they can declare like a state of emergency and postpone or, you know, just not have the 2024 election. So I was freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, this is how they're going to do it. This is how they're stealing America right now. They're either infecting people and making them think that there's some, you know, new virus going around, and they're tricking people into thinking that they're sick and whatever, and they got to be in this facility. And, you know, it was just very, very Orwellian. And I remember thinking to myself after I woke up, I was like, what did it mean? And my takeaway from the whole dream was that not so much about that it was a prediction or anything like that of things to come. I don't think that was it. I think the lesson that I was supposed to take away from the dream was that the United States people have Stockholm Syndrome. And these people all around me had Stockholm Syndrome. They loved their captors. They loved the idea of being taken care of by, daddy government or whatever this was, So they loved it so much that they were actually attacking us because I shot the guy in the head. They didn't like me shooting that guy in the head, but I'm like, hey man, this guy has imprisoned me and my wife, and for all I know, they're pumping us full of something that's giving us these lesions and trying to kill us and stuff, or at least make us think that we're sick. So, anyway, it was very, very vivid. And I don't have dreams that are that vivid that I remember that clearly very often. So I thought I would share this with you guys. And the takeaway, again, like I said, was that the United States people are suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. And I'm not saying the COVID brought that on. It's a long, drawn-out process, but we have been captured by tyrants long ago. This is not the dream talking. This is me talking. We have been captured by tyranny. Anytime something's mandatory, that's not liberty. That's tyranny. We're supposed to have the freedom of choice to make our own decisions, good, bad, and ugly. Well, that is being stripped away from us here in the United States. And I think that was the point of the dream, was because when I fell asleep thinking about how the Amish didn't play ball with the government mandates, and they were just fine. And yet, a lot of other people did play ball, and they weren't just fine. I mean, you guys can see it, man. I mean, not only the school stuff where they let kids stay home, the kids are suffering right now. I saw a thing out of Texas yesterday, and they were saying that out of their class of 40 or 60 kids that were graduating this year, only 3 of them were eligible for graduation because they didn't meet the requirements. The school got so desperate to try to get the truancy situation under control, they reduced the school week to 4 days rather than 5 days because they thought that might help these kids get in here a little better. And anyway, so there's that, and there's all the other stuff, people's businesses being destroyed and stuff like that in the name of COVID, and trying to secure us from this mystery illness and all this stuff. Well, this was very similar in that way. And I just wanted to share this with you. Again, I don't think this is a premonition. I don't think necessarily there won't be a 2024 election or they're going to bring out some other new disease. But after seeing the way they reacted to COVID, I think it's quite possible. So I really wanted to share this with you guys, get your take on it. Again, what do you think when you have wild ass dreams about the end of the United States or the end of the world and stuff like this? Do you try to take it as a premonition, or do you take it as just there are lessons to be learned from that dream? That's kind of the way I look at it. I don't believe it was a premonition. I think it was just a wild dream based on the things that I study. And one of the things that I went to sleep with in my mind was all about the Amish and how they stayed out of the system and were just fine. And one other thing, that I want to say about the Amish, it's very interesting. They don't vaccinate their kids at all, and they have a 0 autism rate among the Amish. Now, I'm not saying that's the only reason. There could be a number of other reasons. Maybe it's because they're eating fresh food that's not processed or whatever, to the point like we're eating here. When you go to McDonald's, you've heard the stories about they're putting wood chips in the chicken McNuggets and stuff like this. And it's not just McDonald's. It's a lot of different places. They're trying to basically take real food out of the equation and give us this substitute, fake meat type stuff all around the country. And I don't know if that's part of it or what, but yeah. Anyway, guys, I wanted to share this with you. I wanted to wish you guys happy Memorial Day, and look out. Look out. Stockholm Syndrome, that's what I took away from it. The United States, not only are we drunk on comfort and drunk on entertainment and drunk on, easy money and all this stuff, we've got Stockholm Syndrome. COVID proves it. Let me know what you guys think about all this down in the comments. Do you put any stock in your dreams when you have dreams like this? If nothing else, do you try to learn lessons from it like I do? I appreciate you stopping by. Happy Memorial Day. I'm going to go into the house and celebrate the rest of my anniversary with my wife, and we're going to have a great day, grill out some food, have a little bit of cold beer and stuff like that, and have some fun. I hope you do the same. Appreciate all of you guys, the subscribers, the new subscribers, old subscribers. I appreciate all of you guys sticking with the channel through thick and thin. And until then, I stand for liberty to the bitter end, even in the dream world. Do you? We'll see you next time.